Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another show of Race Matters. Tonight we have a very important conversation, race inclusion and diversity. We're going to speak to the history aspect of it as well as like current challenges. But we are happy that you join us tonight. Rosie, Egypt, and myself. Sharon is not able to join us, but I'm sure if at some point she's able to join in the comments, we'll love to hear from her. And with that in mind, I will, let Egypt start the conversation. We've heard from him before, and we know that he has a lot of good information to share with
Great
us in this
information, yes.
area.
Yes,
So
yes.
really
So
excited for this
I'm,
conversation.
I'm hoping you guys have had an amazing day. I
Thank
hope that
you.
anybody that's tuned in has had a beautiful, beautiful week so far. And today we're talking about inclusion and diversity and how it's been implemented within today's society and some of the struggles that we have with inclusion and diversity. So one of the biggest things that I wanted to highlight this week on this week's show was that inclusion seemed like it became trendy, right?
Mhm.
I think that once George Floyd passed away, Breonna Taylor passed away, we started to realize that certain things were being implemented because we realized what shirts weren't being allowed during certain protests. For instance, BLM, Black Lives Matter movement, there were certain industries that were allowing their employees to wear Lives Matter shirts or Black Lives Matter pins. So then we started looking at, well, who was the CEOs of these industries or who's the CEOs of these companies? And the more we looked at that, the more we realized that they weren't people of color. And when we started to have that understanding, now we're starting to look at these Fortune 500 companies, and we realized there were only six black CEOs at the time of these Fortune 500 companies.
Mhm.
So why is that? And I think we started to question what is the reason as to why blacks aren't trending or people of color aren't trending in these CEO positions, but not to mention the fact that where are we struggling at to be able to have diversity and inclusion? But then soon after we saw these issues happening, we started to see some inclusion. We started to see some diversity happen. We started to see some companies have an initiative. And for me personally, I would like to speak on it first, that I
Mhm.
don't believe that it should take someone passing away or a
Mhm,
certain movement to make a statement for
Mhm.
there to be a level of diversity. And I don't mean it in the way that I'm saying give us a job because we are of color. I'm saying that give us an opportunity because we have the ability to do the same thing as other people are doing.
Absolutely.
And and I think oftentimes because of the color of skin that we have, it's assumed that we don't have the capacity or the capability to be able to do these jobs.
Mhm.
So I guess to you all, what are your thoughts? Have you ever experienced some level of not getting an opportunity because of your ethnic background, or do you happen to know or see it throughout society or certain or given industries?
Well, for me, I mean, you see it in the workplace and things like that, um, how people are treated, and sometimes, excuse me, sometimes you don't even see the magnitude of it until you deal with people with that mindset of
Mhm.
not wanting to have you included or not seeing you as equal or seeing you as inferior. And you can tell that by the way they talk to you, the way they speak to you, the way they act, as if you're uneducated or you're just not as smart as they are. And that's that entitlement mentality, and the ignorance of that is what's so astounding. Because when I was working at the job I used to work at, when we had a shift in our supervisors' positions, and we ended up dealing with someone that had a problem with people of color,
Right.
it spun out a whole lot of stuff, you know. And
Mhm.
I'm not going to talk about any details because it was a lawsuit and everything like that. And once you do that, you can't talk about it and say what happened. But I can say this: when it turned on me, I informed the person I'm the wrong person to do it to. I said, because see, I'm not like them. I'm not going to let you do that to me.
Mhm.
I said, I'm the last person you should have started doing this with. And that's when I opened up a case, and we had it, we handled it the best way we could. So I mean, it's a you have to address it. The thing that's great right now is so many people are catching it on social medias. They're catching it, you know? So when people say that they don't do that, then you've got them because you've recorded it. And before that, before all of the social media stuff, this has been going on. It's not new to us, Egypt, right? It's not new to us. This is our America. This is our America. This is how it's been for centuries. But now that you all are feeling our pain, some people get nervous because they think they're going to start looking like the outcast because they're not of the Black race. So they're feeling that people are going to be judging them and acting like they're the ones doing it. No, when this happens to us, we ain't blaming all of y'all. We're just saying this person did me wrong. That person did me wrong. This person, this, as they say today, Karen, this person is disrespecting me because of my ethnicity. And it's just people, some people have to stop feeling that we're attacking everybody.
Right.
Because that's why it turned from Black Lives Matter to All Lives Matter. Yeah, I know all lives matter, but you disrespect me when you say that, because you're saying, yes, I know all Black Lives Matter, but all lives matter. But you're saying you don't see what's happening to us. That's what you're actually saying. So let's stop talking. What do you have to say, Mariana? And I'll add more later, but this subject, it really gets me.
Right. Absolutely.
I think me and Egypt can say we're very passionate about it.
And rightly so. You make so much sense to me that, you'd be passionate. And I actually think like more of us should be passionate about this because, if we are not fighting for, important groups within our country, it's going to affect all of us. Right. But, where my mind went to, and I know I'm jumping ahead to like a topic that I covered a little bit for tonight, which is, like race, inclusion, diversity, and higher education. But the one thing that like I thought was like, great finding out through one of the higher education websites was that SAT scores for Black students increased from like the 1970s to the 1994 by 50 points, while like white scores pretty much stayed the same. So like that tells me, right, that like absolutely is an issue of access, like you're saying, Egypt, right? Like if you are giving us a chance, right, for in your case, right, when you are given a chance, you demonstrate that you're able to like perform at the same level. So it has nothing to do with intelligence, as Rosie, you're saying, right? Because for the most part, different people groups will score at different levels. What matters is access.
And that's like you're saying, it's having the ability to have the same level, being on the same level, same playing field. Exactly. I don't know if you all ever saw this, Egypt and Mariana, I'm quite sure you haven't, but I remember seeing something on YouTube or something where a coach had students in a field and he was getting ready to have them run a race. So he said, but before I do that, I'm going to say certain things. And when I ask you these questions, if it applies to you, take a step forward.
That's all that.
Okay. And he went, if your mother and father are together and they're married, take a step forward. If this, all the positives in life, take a step forward. And then when he stopped, he said, now look behind you. He said, all of them people, you have a head start, a jump start on all of them.
Yeah.
And they're expected to beat you in the race. But yet look at the lead you already have on them because of where you're grown up, your education, your parental situation, all of those things. If your mother is at home, if your mother has to work, isn't working too, if you have a stay-home mother that's taking care of you, take a step, and all of the positive things for a child to be reared up in a home that will give him the advantages And I think it was almost only the white students. I think it was still a few white students that were in the back because either their father and mother weren't together. It's a couple things that kept them. But when you looked at the last lines, it was Puerto Ricans and blacks.
I do remember seeing that. It was really profound to see that, and I think that it was a good depiction of how society actually is. And unfortunately, I think I spoke about this recently, is that a lot of times we tell our students that they have equal opportunities, but then when you look at these private schools and public schools versus a lot of these charter schools that have a predominantly Black or Hispanic community, they don't have the same amount of textbooks. They don't have the same amount of resources, whether that's computers, laptops, to be able to excel, but yet you're putting them into the same standardized testing. They don't get the same vocabulary, so their vocabulary is a little bit more dense and not as vast as other institutions, so that when they see these words on these SATs, or when you get to another level where you're taking the LSAT, you didn't come from a community where you were able to hear these type of verbiage or hear this type of verbiage to allow you to propel yourself into a position to win. So to tell people that they have the same equal opportunity is unfortunate and unfair, because we're not looking for equality, we're looking for equity. And I mentioned that last week. So, or not last week, a couple of weeks ago. So for us, when it comes to being in a society that is learning to be inclusive or learning to add diversity, all we're saying is give us a chance. Give us a chance. If another thing too is that I might have went to a HBCU where somebody else went to a PWI. And for those that don't know, HBCU is a historically Black college university, and PWI is a predominantly white institution. So because I went to Lincoln University and I received a certain bachelor degree, let's say political science for that matter, and then I went to, I don't know, Penn State, and I got a political science degree, my chances may be greater because I went to Penn State versus Lincoln University, simply because of the name and the culture that was cultivated at the school. That's not fair, and that's not true diversity. So how can we start to implement change? And I think that instead of talking about the problem, I think these are some of the first steps. What is that we need to do as a community to show that we are just as good, if not more qualified? And then how do we continue to push the pendulum forward so that we can have equity in these given societies and communities and industries?
I tell you what, Egypt, this is, y'all know I like to fool around and act silly sometimes, but if the SATs were done in Ebonics, guess who would get it?
100%.
But all we're saying is the language that you're presenting is not representative or proper representation of children who grow up in poor societies, who grow up in, as you say, the ghetto, you know. And what's so amazing, I don't know, I was talking about this before, not here, not on this forum, but when you talk to somebody from Camden and you hear their language, a lot of people might say, you ain't even educated. Yet these people are smarter than that person who said it, because just because they speak a different lingo does not mean they're not intelligent. It's just they grew up in a certain area and they talk a certain way. Absolutely. You can't have speak to a person, a Puerto Rican person who has a heavy accent, and just because you don't understand everything they say, you think they're uneducated. My dad and his people, especially some of my aunts and stuff, some of them didn't even speak English still, and they were in the country for over 30 years. But yet they were brilliant.
Right.
But just because you don't understand them doesn't mean they're uneducated. They're not educated in your ideology because of where you come from, but you couldn't survive where I come from.
Not at all.
Matter of fact, you would need us to protect you. Whereas I come to your area, I don't need as much protection as far as people attacking you, but as opposed to people looking at me and saying I don't belong there.
Right.
And they might think you don't belong here, but if anything, personally, for me, from what I've seen, if anything, we will come to your aid quicker than you would come to ours.
100%. And I think the unfortunate part with a lot of the people trying to become diverse in these given industries is that they feel as though if they do get judged against, or there is a level of bias during this trial period when they're trying to get hired, then they won't be able to feed their families. They might not have the financial backing to be able to support their families. So instead of saying something, they'll settle for something less. or they'll settle for a lesser pay because they're afraid that if they speak up and they speak out about the level of maybe racism or prejudice that they're or bias that they're experiencing, then they won't be able to feed their family for the next week.
Right.
So I guess I'm curious, Rosie, for you, how would you recommend somebody handle a situation where they do feel like they're being scrutinized for their ethnic background to be able to propel themselves in a position to win or fight against the status quo and be able to say that enough is enough, I'm not dealing with this, but knowing they have a family to feed?
And the fear, because I was concerned. The fortunate thing for me is I was in a union, so I had something to help me and not make me be afraid to address things. But first things first, you have to address it. Now that's very frightful, but my advice to you, because I'm going to give you all if you're in a situation where you feel that kind of thing is happening from a supervisor or somebody who's above you, first things first, document everything.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say document everything, I mean everything. Because because there's going to come a time when you're going to have to address it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have a union, and if you have, human resources and stuff that don't believe the supervisors are above you, you have to have documentation.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing you need to do is address the perpetrator. Because I told my supervisor, I said, now I said it comfortably because, again, I'm in the union and I know if you do something to me, I'm taking it straight to them. But I said, you're a racist. Yeah. And he said, what? I said, you have a problem with people of color. Well, my kids don't think that. I said, now that's the worst thing to tell me. I would not expect your children to tell you. So you, first of all, document, because I had papers written down every time he said something off and every time he pulled me in to discipline me. And I mean, the discipline was crazy. The person would, let me tell you all how it would happen every morning. And this is, we're just doing this to let you all know you're going to see this, or if you're experiencing this, you need to handle it properly. But every single morning, almost every Black person in this person's gang would be standing outside his door waiting, because he would call us in there and go down our timesheet from the day before to try to discipline us. Say, why were you here? Why were you there? And it was only the Black people. And when you have white people walking past you all saying, y'all know what's happening. Oh my God. Do y'all see what's going on? Y'all need to handle that. And the thing is, it didn't happen to me for a while. But then the first time it happened to me, I said, you messed with the wrong one. Right. They ain't gonna say nothing. I said, but I'm the wrong one. And I handled it. But document everything, guys. Don't be afraid. Now, this is my advice to everybody out there, Mariana, whoever. Anytime you feel that this type of discrimination is happening to you, you have less than a year to report this to the EEOC. If you want to file charges to the Equal Employment and press a discrimination charge, and you want to go through EEOC, you have barely less than a whole year to report the incident, because after 360,
it reaches the statute of limitations.
It reached the statute of limitations, and if you follow up the following year after that 360, they cannot handle it for you. And if you do handle it through them, don't waste your time in getting an attorney, because if it's actually going on and they see that it's happening, you won't pay a penny to an attorney, because they will go after them and they will give you the whole amount that is issued by a judge, and you will get every penny.
That's very important information to know, right? Because I don't think a lot of people know that.
Well, I didn't know it, and it messed up.
Right.
It actually messed up our case because we never went to EEOC. Now, of course, the attorneys that I had hired, I told them this is a discrimination case. They were from New York. And I think because of the certain things that was happening, they went ahead and took care of other cases. And then by the time they got back to handle ours, it was almost 2 years.
Yeah.
And by then, they couldn't even bring it up as an EEOC case. So we just had to do it as a disgruntled employee type of case. But Please understand this. If you feel this is happening to you, my advice is document, and then address the supervisor, address human resources, tell them what's going on. And if they are not helping you immediately within the first at least 3 to 4 months, contact the EOC, give them all the information, let them take it from there and see what they say. Either they're going to say you have a case or you don't. But at least if you have a case, then you didn't mess up your case because you only have 1 year to file. So when you feel you're being mistreated, mishandled, discriminated against, you've got a year. But after that, you're out of luck.
I think another thing to highlight too is something that I've experienced when I was working in entertainment is having locks, or I know people call them dreads, but they're not dreads, they're locks. Now that the Crown Act has been passed, you can't be discriminated for the type of hair that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, a certain texture or a certain style is considered professional versus, hair like mine or braids can be seen as unprofessional. And my thought with that is who dictates what is a professional hairstyle versus an unprofessional hairstyle?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was a huge step forward, right? But a lot of times they'll never tell you specifically that it's for your hair, because then if you document that it is racial discrimination or discrimination of whatever the sort. So I think another thing too is trying to pinpoint how it is actually racism or actually something that is being held against you biasly because of whatever it is that you possess, because they'll try to find a way that it isn't indicative to what you're saying it is.
They want to curve it.
Right. Like, for instance, instead of saying it was my hair, they said, oh, we're looking for a cleaner look. I don't want to say the organization because they're a well-known, big organization, but I was looking to be, it's tough to say, but put it this way. They said, essentially, we're looking for a cleaner look, and to know that that's where their mentality was, but didn't look at my work ethic, my ability. My work ethic was okay for a certain job there, but for the job that I was trying to be, they said they were looking for a cleaner look. So it wasn't even about my ability. And
so did you ask them at any point? Did you ask them what makes me look unclean? I mean, what
does that mean?
What is it that makes me look unclean to you?
I wish I could be as transparent as I would like. But what I would say is that I had a friend who worked in the front office, and he was in the meeting when this conversation was had. I was not in the meeting, so if I had brought it up to them, it would have been shown that I was told by this person that was on the board that this was an issue.
Right.
And the issue was not about it. They didn't say my hair. They said a cleaner look. I keep my hair tight.
But we understand. We understand. Isn't that what y'all call microaggression?
For sure.
That's what it is. We understand what you're saying. We're not 10 carats stupid. We understand what you mean. We understand that you look at us and we have to fit. Don't get mad, but just like how you all fit your look of Jesus Christ to us, and then we had to go in the Bible and get the information of what Jesus looked like to make us start saying, hold on, blonde hair, blue eyed ain't Jesus Cristo. Okay. Okay. Because first things first, if Jesus showed up on your doorstep with that Jesus hanging up, if he showed up on your doorstep today and asked you to open your door, you would say, go back to your country because of his ethnicity. So stuff, we've been getting stuff shoved down our throat for so long. And the problem that a lot of people having is we're starting to regurgitate it. Because it doesn't fit in our gut. Our gut cannot handle the misinformation and disinformation that we've been swallowing for so long, that now the regurgitation of what has happened over the years is happening, and it's offensive to you all. But little do you understand is you're the one that shoved it down my throat. So why are you so upset at what I'm regurgitating when this came from you? I'm sorry, guys.
No, that makes me think of something when you brought up the point of Jesus. Right now, obviously, we all know that The Little Mermaid is coming out soon, and The Little Mermaid
That was
happens
going
to
to be my
be,
current event last week. I had it on my. I told her this is what I want to handle. The Little Mermaid.
yeah.
Mhm.
So The Little Mermaid happens to be black, right?
Mhm.
And she happens to be a black ginger, meaning black woman with red hair.
With red hair. Mhm.
And everybody's going into a frenzy. And it's an issue about, well, when I grew up, Little Mermaid wasn't black. When I grew up, Little Mermaid wasn't black, and she has red hair. I guess, what are you ladies' thoughts on that? Because I have I have a few thoughts on it.
Marietta, I'm
gonna
gonna let you
elaborate
talk because I'm about to take this whole show.
first.
And
I'll
that's
let
the
you
thing.
talk.
I always enjoy hearing from
Oh.
all of you, you and Sharon and Egypt. But she's a fish, right? So,
Well, first of all, it's a mythical character.
oh, actually, and there I did know this part, but I learned recently that there are mermaids in like African mythology that predates anything in like any European writings.
And if it's in an African mythology, she wasn't white in the first place. But seriously,
And to be more important than that, honestly, at the end of the day, this was one like where I had some conversations, and like my fiance was sending me some information too. But this was one where it's like, this was just so much noise. What mattered? Like I saw little black girls watching and getting seeing their reaction.
they brought tears to my eyes. They brought tears to my eyes.
Me too. Yes. And then I was like, it doesn't matter the noise that some people are gonna do this. It's just like like whatever.
But if y'all think about it, no, go ahead. But now
I was
what?
just thinking in the context, and of course it's important to address. I don't want to minimize that part, but what I wanted to highlight was that this is who this is for, right? And this is what matters, is how our little kids, and especially little kids of color, going to experience,
Mhm.
and the fact that it is important for them to see themselves reflected in like characters that they might want to like watch, right?
Mhm.
And that's really whose opinion matters in that sense, right? The fact that this might mean so much to these little girls, that brought tears to my eyes, and that was the most important part in all of this. And
yeah, and there is nobody. Every white America has played every ethnicity except including its own. Okay.
yeah.
Look at Moses.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Look at Noah. Look at look at Pharaoh, all of these people that are of Cush descendants and that are Canaanites and stuff, and they come from the black ethnicity, and yet every time they're played in for us, they do a movie about it. We're the slaves carrying stuff. We are non-essential to their story.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment that we say, no, we are more essential than you think we are, then you get upset and you say, how can that be? Ariel is not black. Ariel's not white. She's a fish. She's under the water. She might not have color for it. She might look like a dolphin, be gray, but we don't know. But the fact that you would get so offended goes to show your fragility. Goes to show your fragility, because who plays Ariel does not matter. When you have Nefertiti played on TV, she wasn't a black woman. It was a white woman playing Nefertiti. Nefertiti ain't white. So you get mad because we enter in on the scene, but we're supposed to be able to palate you taking all of our positions.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense.
And then, the claim, oh, I'm not racist, but, it's like, well, what is it then? What is it then, right? If that's...
I've heard so many different perspectives on this topic, and I want to present them to you guys just to see what your thought is. The first school of thought that someone had brought or presented to myself was that, if we're talking about being inclusive, right? There's not a lot of characters that are gingers.
Absolutely.
And because Ariel was a ginger, they feel as though it's not about that she's not white, it's that she's not a real ginger. And because of that, it feels as though it was unfair that they're not giving gingers their fair shot in entertainment or their fair share in the cartoon world. And it's unfortunate for gingers to be able to be properly represented. What are your thoughts on that?
I can probably dig in some old photos and show you some ginger family members of mine. Okay? Because Black people, let's face it, the intermingling of races, whether our parents were raped or grandparents, great grands were raped and stuff, the intermingling, we have gingers in families but we didn't call them gingers. We said they're red bones.
Yep.
That's what we call them. If you hear somebody talk about a red bone, they're talking about a person of color who's light skinned and has gingerish looking hair. Okay. Now I remember seeing years ago they were talking about some kind of Aborigine people that were living, and they were diving in the water and stuff. If you look at some of the Aborigine people who are people of color, a lot of the Aborigine people have reddish hair.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people have to understand none of you all got any of your colors except from us. We bring the color, and how it gets divvied out, that's between where you stay, where you ended up, where you live, where your people ended up going and where you're settling and then brought up in certain areas. But your color came from us. And just because you have less of it because of where you settled does not mean you didn't get it from us. You got ginger hair, came from us. You got afros, came from us. You know, the foolishness of all of that, it just doesn't make sense. Again, I can go through some old photos and I can pull out some family members that got gray eyes, ginger hair, green eye, all of the colors that you all think we shouldn't have.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right. And yet at the same time, there still were some, right? Like Ariel, right? So Brave is also ginger, right?
Yeah.
Pretty sure Pure Pan is as well, right?
Yep.
And even Anna, right? For Anna from Frozen, I'm pretty sure.
I was just thinking. I think she may be ginger.
So, okay. I guess out of all the arguments, this would be the closest to I can see a little bit of validity to it, right?
Actually, now that I think about it, they had a whole show called As Told by Ginger, because she was a ginger. But I didn't think about that until just now, which is interesting. And then the next thought process was from Black people, actually, that they don't like the fact that they made Ariel Black, because it seems as though Disney wants to capitalize on the idea of being inclusive, because of what we talked about in the very beginning of the show, is that being inclusive is trendy right now. So a lot of people have a feeling that they're trying to monetize on our Blackness because it is popular right now. So making Ariel Black is going to give them more views, more likes, more people buying tickets to be able to see a Black Ariel.
And you know what?
Performative rather than true.
You know how, but see, this is where we as people of color need to stop shooting ourselves in the foot.
Right. We
want you to accept us. And then we say, oh, now you're monetizing on us. Do you want them to accept us or not? Give me whatever I can. If I can get a Black Ariel, give me a Black Ariel. I don't care if they're monetizing on it. That we've had to live with us being a minority, even though we're the majority, for too long.
Yeah.
So why do you punch yourself in the mouth? I don't care if they're running with it. Let them run with it. But there's a beautiful young woman, young lady, who got a part, whose voice is just unbelievable, because I've been following her and her sister for years anyway. And she's got the opportunity to let our young daughters see, just like our young Black men saw a Black man be president, and you got a problem with that, then you have a problem. My pastor talks and she says, you have an issue. It's you. It's not the fact that this young lady, Disney is using this young lady to get more views. If you have an issue with Ariel, it's you.
Right.
And that situation, you can't blame on white people. You got to blame it on the fact that you have such an inferior thought about who we are, who you are, that then you get offended when you think they're using us.
Right.
Go ahead and use us. You listen, if you don't want your daughter to be used, maybe I can get one of my nieces up in there. Okay? How about that? You think your daughter's going to be used to be a stereotype and they're using her? Well, guess what? Move your child out the way. Let me get my child up in there so that my child can make millions. Okay? Because ain't nobody have a problem when the cartoon Ariel, she's white, but Ursula is black.
Right.
Yeah.
All the evil people look, even with Maleficent. Everything about her is dark.
Yeah. Princess and the Frog, same thing.
Everything is dark.
Even Scar.
Scar.
Scar was black.
His dad was a ginger. I mean, his brother was a ginger, but he was black. He was a brother. Okay.
Right.
So now that Ursula, now that Ariel is representing something positive, now you're saying, see, this is you're darned if you do and you're darned if you don't. For sure. Disney, keep running with it. We need a couple more black princesses somehow thrown up in there. Don't worry about what we say, because eventually our kids will come up in the system and they'll start accepting it and they won't see it as us being abused. Yeah. But our mentality is so warped that we can't even see a good thing and say it's good. We got to attack that too. So they're like, well, what do you want?
It's like a self-sabotage kind of thing.
Yes.
I think that, but I do understand the thought process, because
I do too.
We don't want to be monetized in a way that exploits us. But we're not. I think there's two sides to that coin where we're able to see the beauty in it as well. See that Ariel is black and she's getting a level of exposure that now these little black girls will feel like they are, or have the ability to be, this prominent singer / mermaid. And they feel that they feel some type of pride within themselves. Just like whenever they get a chance to have a black Barbie doll. That wasn't a thing when I was growing up, like as it is now. I'm seeing a lot more black Barbie dolls, but that's because people pushed it and challenged the status quo to say, we need to see more of this. That's what you call representation. And I think without representation, you don't know what is good or bad. And now that we're finally getting something good, take pride in it, as opposed to saying, why are they trying to monetize on it?
And that's what I'm saying. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. Just run with it. Get all your nieces and nephews and all of them in there and say, look at this one. Look. And for them little girls to say, she looks like me. That's amazing. It brought tears to my eyes, because why do we have to be so shocked that we're a part of us?
Yeah. This sort of reminds me to an extent, and I'll have to explain a little bit to kind of see the connection. But I was hearing, some criticism about Black Lives Matter solely because, in some cases, right, the founders might have misused some of the funds, right? And I know plenty of stories when white pastors have done the same thing, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Not addressed. So that doesn't take away, from the movement in any way, and it's right. And it doesn't even mean do we have to relabel the movement? No, this is what took traction, right? This is what the people know, and
right?
Things like that are gonna happen. Sometimes people are gonna misuse some money along the way. However, this just could be still part of the work that's being done, right?
Right.
It's part of the exposure that happens, right? And hopefully, if people use this movement for money, somewhere along the way they're going to be held accountable for that. We know stores do it all the time. We saw certain stores who all of a sudden jumped on all LGBTQ flags and accessories, right? Where years ago when there was more stigma, they wouldn't have done that, right? It's easier to join. But at the same time, the collective movement does play a role. It does
Mhm.
help. It does create awareness. It does, raise money, and all of that can be, led into a good direction.
I remember, and this is dealing with the work situations that you talked about, but I don't know if you were, I don't think you were around, like on the show or anything, or even probably listening to the show when I mentioned this before, Egypt. But it was even in the workplace being accepted, you know, and a lot of people don't understand is the palatability of a person of color is linked to their complexion.
Mhm.
And I say that because I remember years ago when my oldest sister was working at this law firm. And I mean, I knew them, and I would go to lunch with her all the time and stuff like that. So all of a sudden she called me and she said, Rosie, you know such and such? I said, yeah, how's she doing? She said, guess what? She just got fired. And now, mind you, she was one of the longest paralegal that was in the firm, one of the oldest ones that was there. I said, what for what? I don't know, but they just fired her, you know? And I said, what? So then she called me another, like a week later or a week or two later, Rosie, guess who just got fired? These were people of color,
Yeah.
these legal secretaries. So she said it. I said, oh my God. And she said, what? I said, they're getting rid of all the black people. She said, Rosie, stop. Come on now. This has nothing to do with race. I said, Don, why'd I say my sister's name? Big sis. They're getting rid of the black folk. She said, no, they're not, Rosie. I'm telling you. She said, they haven't even bothered me yet. I said, you're palatable.
Mm.
My sister is like 2 shades lighter than me. You see what I'm saying? My oldest sister. We've got different fathers. She's a couple shades lighter than me. I said, they're heading to you. I said, you're palatable. I said, they're getting rid of all of them. I said, but let me tell you something. Your day is coming. You better prep yourself. Round about 2 weeks later, guess what she called me and said? They're firing me. They're letting me go. I said, oh, okay. So they reached their max of dark shades, huh?
Mm.
So now they're stepping it up to a brownish shade. I said, I told you that. Matter of fact, you should have been ready. And not only should you have been ready, but you should have gotten the names of the ones that left, and you should have called and went and filed an EEOC complaint.
It's I think like it's tough when those type of things are happening, because in the moment that they're happening, you're trying to justify the reason as to why the people are letting these people go. Like, well, maybe they did this, or maybe they didn't do this. And then when you see it continue to matriculate to more people of color, you're like, or maybe it is what I think it is. And I don't know how you really prepare for that. I do understand now, what you're saying about making documenting it, and then
Tracking it.
also putting it or sending it to, I think you said, is it the
EEOC.
EEOC. But in the midst of it, you don't really know if that's what it is, or at least you think you know, but you're not positive. And then it's not even just that; it's how do I prove that that is what it is? So
It's very touchy. It is a very touchy thing. Now ours was blatant.
Yeah.
And even my oldest sisters, that was blatant, and the hardest part is when you don't have a union and they can fire you for anything they want. They could say, oh, they weren't coming in time, and they did. And they will create a case against you, which is why you have to document. You even have to, and this is just advice again, guys out there, you even have to document what your coworkers do. Because you see, you'll get fired or suspended for doing the same thing that one of them did.
Right.
And they get away with it. They don't even get pulled in the office, and they don't even really talk to them or say anything. So sometimes you even have to document and record what your coworkers are doing, and letting them know the boss walked past that person was doing it. And then when they come hitting at you, and you say, well, you didn't have a problem with that person. So when you have documentation, that's the only thing that is going to give you a leg to stand on. Nobody teaches you this stuff.
Yep. Because if you don't have documentation, it's considered hearsay.
It's hearsay, and if you don't have that proof, then you're not going to win that battle because they've got the better attorneys, they've got the money to do what they got to do. And if you don't have anything to back it, I recognize what was happening at my sister's job because of what I experienced at my job. And I'm not talking about because what happened to me was just, was years later after what happened to her. But I recognized what was happening to her because I would show up as a technician at customers' houses and they would start to open the door and then start to close it again. And can I help you? Hi, I'm here and I'm here to work on you, this and this and this. And me being a female, I loved it because I felt that females would be able to handle a female showing up at their house. They'd feel a little bit more safer than if it's a man. But I had people shut the door in my face and say, my husband ain't home or this and that. And they'd shut the door in my face. And then I would get on intentionally. I would get on their dial tone and call out to our office and say they're refusing access. And then the office people would call me and say, really? Because the customer is calling us right now saying you refused access. And I didn't. I don't know. I've had people ask me, and it's not only guys, it's not only with your ethnicity, but it's even with your gender. I've had men ask me, do you know what you're doing? I said, do you know what I'm doing? They'd be like, no. Okay, so if I told you I knew what I was doing, could you believe me or what? Would you actually know if I knew what I was doing?
Right.
And there were times, Egypt, that I should have been in film because I would become an actress at some of those houses. I'd be working, and this one gentleman, he was on me like a pit bull, following everything I did. I said, I'm going to drill. Oh, you shouldn't do that drill right there. That's not going to be right. I said, you know what? You're probably right, but let me just try it. And I drilled down, and then I pushed cable in. I said, oh, man, I really hope. I mean, I acted that crap out. Oh, I hope I did it in the right spot. What do you think? I don't know. I don't think you did. I think you didn't know. I said, okay, let's go down there and check. I said, and I'm walking around drop ceiling. And he's like, I don't know. I think you did it back here. And this over. No, I said, no, I think it might be right here. And I popped their ceiling tile and the cable fell in our faces. He said, I think I need to leave you alone and let you do your job. I said, yeah, that would be the best thing for you to do. But you have to, the placating is very difficult. They have to walk around and deal with the judgment of other people who don't even know you and don't know what you know, yet they've already deemed you either uneducated, not skilled enough, or just not the right person to do the job.
I wonder how. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I just was going to say, I wonder, I only know half of the spectrum, meaning I'm a Black male. But not only are you a woman not only are you of color, but you're also a woman. So I can't even imagine how that can both be challenging because being one is already hard enough. So having to deal with both is just.
I've been asked plenty of times, do you know what you're doing? Are you sure you can do this? And it's like, can I just do my job?
Yeah.
Can I just do my job?
Like the additional effort that it takes to just navigate that part, when you just be able to do your job. And I think I surprised Mariana and Sharon the one time because the one job that I went to, they asked me, and it threw me off because I was thinking Black, but they said, how does it feel being a minority? Now, see, at that language that they asked me, I didn't think female, at that point. I automatically thought Black,
right?
Especially since the four men addressing me were all white,
right?
And my gender just flew out the window. I wasn't thinking gender. I was like, excuse me, what? Excuse you? And then it dawned on them that they were asking a Black woman about how does it feel being a minority,
right?
And they were, no, you mistook what we said. Well, what we meant, ma'am, what we meant is how does it feel being a woman in a man's job? I said, oh, because y'all scared me there. And Egypt, I took my tools off and was handing it out to them. And they were like, well, what are you doing? I said, well, if it's a man's job, you obviously can fix it. Go ahead and fix it and let me know what you find, and then I can report it to our company. Well, we don't know how to do that. I said, so then how is it determined a man's job? I said, what determines this job as a man's job if you don't know how to do it? Are you men or are you not? I was messing with them, and I said, listen, I'm here. I work for the I'm a phone company. I'm a technician. Let me just go ahead and what's happening, and let me go ahead and see if I can fix it.
Yeah. But so like when you're describing, Rosie, also like made me, like think of some of the articles I was reading this week. And the fact that we have enough documentation that oftentimes when women, but also like people of color, but especially women, do speak up, there is retaliation of some sort often, or like some sort of like violence, in response to that, right? So I'm sure you have faced that quite a bit, right?
I don't know if it's my.
Go ahead.
I'm losing
What's the matter?
service. I think I'm not sure if it's just me or.
You seem to be okay to me. Yeah, it might just be you, hon, because we hear you and everything. So
yeah. Did you hear what I was saying so far, Egypt and Rosie?
Yeah, we just lost him for a second. But yeah,
like, do you face retaliation for being more outspoken, or any like negative consequences in that
no,
way?
because it's not what I did, but how I did it.
Okay.
See, a lot of times when I address things, I either address it in a comedic way or in a way that's not that doesn't attack. I just say, you really have a problem here. You should talk to. I think it's the way I address things. And but it's very crazy, because you walk on eggshells in certain situations. I've had people who refuse to let me in, and I've had people that I'd walk in the door and they say, "Oh my God, finally it's going to get fixed right." So you get both ends of it, and you have to learn to be flexible. And that's what you need. You need to sometimes not be so offended at other people's ignorance. And it's a balancing act. And if other people who are not your ethnicity would stop being so judgmental, it's a sad situation when you got to always defend yourself because of your ethnicity. I shouldn't walk in the store and then you follow me.
Right. Absolutely.
Are you following me? I'm feeling like you're bothering me. I remember a customer called the company and said I stole a check from their drawer. And I knew it was because I was Black that they did that, because you know what? When they found it, they never called the company and apologized or anything.
Wow.
It wasn't until the department, our security department, contacted the customer to find out more information. Oh, we found it.
Wow.
They didn't call and apologize and said they found it. I've had people that just it's just it's a juggling act. But you know what? Being a person of color, you've dealt with it for so long that you know how the dance goes.
Yeah, and that part makes sense. And yet at the same time, I keep thinking like how unfair there is, right? Like work can be tough enough regardless of what job you do. But
right.
And I think it was very helpful advice to document everything.
Yeah. So and that's
work to have to document, right?
Huh?
No, I was just saying how it's unjust, the fact that like you have to document, right? Like you already have work to do. Like going to work every day is
welcome back.
Yeah. You made it back.
Yeah. But but documentation is the most important thing. Go ahead, honey.
No, I don't know what is exactly going on. For some odd reason, it continues to break up still. So I'm assuming that you can hear me right now because I don't hear you guys.
We can.
So I think I'm okay right now.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure what I missed, but I think that for me, I wanted to just make sure I bring everything for myself and what I was saying in full circle, that I do understand that right now it's a trending topic for diversity. It's a trending
Mm-hmm.
topic for inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
And what I ask for people of color, people that are considered minorities, I don't want to say you are minorities or not, to continue to push the envelope. Don't allow people to get over on you in fear of, but try to find another way to make a stand so that it doesn't continue. In order for us to progress, we have to be uncomfortable. In order for us to be in a position of power, we have to start getting in positions of leadership and then showing that we are more than capable. But in order for us to get there, we may have to risk a job that we think we want for the job
Yeah.
that we know we're qualified for.
Mm-hmm.
And also, as you said, Rosie, to make sure that we continue to document things that are
Everything.
not in our favor, that are biased, that are discriminatory, so that we can ultimately bring that up in court if need be. But
Mm-hmm.
I want to continue, and I guess I'm afraid that my camera may cut off, I might lose service before we end, to continue to encourage people of color, people that are considered minorities, to continue to push for these higher jobs that are in these CEO, COO positions, or start your own business so that we can ultimately have not only a seat at the table, but own the table.
Right. That is so important. And we and on top of that, not only pushing for that kind of stuff, but stop looking at every incident as if somebody's trying to monopolize on the black ethnic groups by using us and stuff. If we get a seat at the table, don't say that we stop saying that we just got a seat at the table just because we're black. Fine. If I got a seat at the table because I was black, fine. But watch when I get there. I'm going to stun them with my intelligence and what I know. So that is what's going to not only have me, I may have gotten in there because I was black, but now it's time to show them what I know. And if Ariel is black, then let her be black, but let her talent show them why she was really needed to have that position. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. Don't beat yourself up. Don't act like, oh, they're just using us because we're the hot topic. Yes, we are. We've been a hot topic for a long time, but now that we're in public being a hot topic, let's run with it. Don't kudos to Disney. Kudos to you for bringing us into the fold and allowing us to be a part of the team. But we do so much self damage by doing what we do. If it was your daughter, you wouldn't be acting like that. You would be so happy and excited if it was your child that was playing Ariel. So let's give Disney the openness to go ahead and allow us to be a part of the team.
Right. Yeah. And for how many times you was the black person that was the most qualified, and you did not get hired, right?
Right.
No, like that wasn't an issue back then.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what if sometimes it has to start with wanting to include diversity, because there's still work to be done. Even when there's a performative way of doing diversity, there's still plenty of work, but it has to start.
Yeah, and let them see, if they hire you, let them see why they need you. Make sure you make yourself so valuable to them that they don't want to lose you because you've brought so much to the table. But understand, you'll be the open door for the next ones that show up.
Yeah, and of course, I think it makes a difference. Back to Ariel, we saw, like you said, how little kids responded to when Obama was elected, to when Kamala Harris became vice president. Like, those things make a difference. So with that in mind, we can end tonight's show. Was there anything else, Egypt, you wanted to add?
The last thing I was just going to say is I was one of those kids. Now I'm currently in law school, but I remember my mom saying when I was a young kid that you could be anything you want to be in this world. And I remember like not seeing a black president ever. So I did question my mom about, she said you can be the president of the United States, but there's no black presidents. And it wasn't until I was in high school that there became a black president. And now there are little kids that are going to be like me that can say, no, there was a black president. And now they believe there can be anything in the world. And And I think that in and itself was one of the most beautiful moments, to be able to say, I'm more than capable to be anything in the world, because even the president of the United States looks like me.
And now the vice president looks like me. So
There you go.
a good thing.
No,
Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching tonight's episode. You can share it or even comment later if you didn't get a chance to watch it live. And with that in mind, we'll see you next week.
Thank you, everybody.